What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of GOAT Talk, where my dad and I have conversations around faith, Christianity, religion, society today, and a host of other different topics, all centered around God, the greatest to ever do it in faith. My name is Ryan, and this is my dad, the Pastor Chris Hale. How are you today, Dad?
Doing good, son. Doing good. Glad to be with you.
Good. Well, as we start off every episode, before we do that, I almost got ahead of myself. Before we do that, if this is your first time visiting our channel, please hit the subscribe button and be sure on your way out to hit the like button as well as that bell in the top right-hand corner to enable your notifications so that whenever we drop a future episode or a video, you're notified and good to go. So before we dive into today's topic of the episode, we always like to start off the show with a GOAT discussion outside of faith and Christianity and all that good stuff. So today I want to ask you, because obviously we hear this debate every day on First Take or any sports debate show or any barbershop around the world, is who's the greatest of all time from basketball wise, greatest basketball player of all time, right? MJ or LeBron, those are the two we usually hear talked about. But obviously we can kind of talk about that till we're blue in the face. But I want to ask you, when it comes to basketball, a little different question of who do you think is the greatest basketball team of all time?
Oh, that's easy for me. It's the 1987 Lakers.
87 Lakers. Okay.
87 Lakers dismantle everybody. I know everybody's going to talk about Jordan and the Bulls, Pippen, Jordan, Rodman. But when you look at the 87 Lakers, you got Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer. And I always tell people, when you look at basketball, it's about matchups. The only tough matchup on the Bulls on that team is who guards Jordan.
Yeah.
But there's nobody guarding Kareem. Even at that age, there's nobody guarding Kareem. You think you can guard Magic, but then you got Michael Cooper, who's going to check Jordan.
Yeah.
You still had Byron Scott coming off the bench. You had a guy that gets lost in basketball folklore, who's one of the greatest finishers ever to play the game, is James Worthy.
Yeah.
AC Green held his own at power forward. And we didn't even talk about their bench. McAdoo?
Yeah.
Bob McAdoo is 6th or 7th man.
Right.
All-time, one of the all-time leading scorers in NBA history. That's just to name a few guys on that team. Another guy who's on that team who gets overlooked, but you know his son, because his son plays for one of the greatest teams. Klay Thompson, his daddy was Michael Thompson.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these dudes is dogs in their own right.
Right.
So the Bulls had a decent starting lineup, but what set them apart was Jordan and Pippen.
What was that Lakers team's record?
They won like almost 68, 70, almost 70 games.
So, okay, almost 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing that gets lost in the whole thing, is because everybody, when they look at basketball, they look at how many wins you had in a season. Well, the problem with that is what's really never talked about in the Jordan discussion, that really is not trying to take anything from Jordan, is the league was kind of diluted then. They, the league is not, I mean, even then when you start talking about the Jordan or Magic, LeBron debate, there's more talented players in the NBA now than there was then.
Right.
And, always just throwing a mix. When Jordan won his 6 titles, who do he have to face?
Yeah.
So I go, when you talk about basketball, the Lakers always had to run into the Celtics.
Right. So I got you. I hear you. I just feel like it's hard for me to say that 72-10 Bulls team is not.
Have you ever heard the word called Showtime?
Yeah, I know what Showtime.
No, you heard of Showtime? Do you know where that came from?
It came from the Lakers, man.
Wait, no, not just the Lakers. Not just the Lakers. The best Showtime
was the 87 Lakers.
Was the 87 Lakers.
So I get you. I feel that. But that 72-10 Bulls teams, that was ridiculous. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Listen.
I mean, 72 wins in an 82-game season is insane. True. Okay, the NBA may be a little diluted at that time or whatever, but to even do that,
I'm not
and
saying
then win the championship at the end of it.
Listen, I'm not saying it's not an incredible feat.
Yeah.
But if we're going to go there, the Golden State Warriors then.
Don't do it because they lost.
But that's what I was going to say.
My GOAT, King James. So don't
listen,
start.
No, what I'm saying is, wait now. And I love LeBron, but we have to keep everything in perspective, because what gets lost in game is certain things change the dynamic of the game. You know, if we still don't know if Draymond Green don't lose his brain.
Oh, don't do that.
He don't lose his brain.
Came down from a 3-1 lead.
Wait a minute.
With his co-star, the one and only Kyrie Irving.
I am not saying. Listen,
they had every opportunity.
Saying
and if you're that good, one player shouldn't have ended it.
You're missing what I'm saying. I'm not saying the Golden State Warriors was as great of a team as everybody says they are. I'm going to your point of wins.
No, I'm not saying that it was not just the wins. I'm not just going strictly off the wins. I was just giving that for context. 72-10. That's the team I'm talking about.
72-10, and they played who?
I'm saying they not only won 72 games in a regular season, but they also ended up making that finals run and winning that championship at the end of the day. So we talked about the 73-9 Warriors, but they didn't win the title.
I understand that. But when I go back to the team I told you, the 87 Lakers beat them all.
Okay.
They would beat them all. I'm not, I'm not a betting man, but I'd bet the house on that one. And my reason is I still think people underestimate the ability that Kareem had.
Fair. I don't know if people underestimate.
Yes, they do. At that stage of his career,
scoring record for years.
Listen, at that stage of his career, he was still 20-10.
Right, 100%.
Had the most unguardable shot the game's ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just saying, the only reason people keep giving all the hype to the Bulls and the 72 wins is because Jordan's is modern. Everybody fly, everybody got his tennis shoes on. But if we had to lace him up, he would never admit it because he's that competitive.
100%.
He's that competitive, but that team could not, because there's too many guys on the Lakers to check. There's not enough Bulls that can check them.
Yeah. It would have been a good one. It would have been a good one for sure.
Yeah.
It would have been a good one for sure.
That would have been one I would have loved to pay to see.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you feel like is the greatest basketball team of all time? Is it the 87 Lakers? Is it the 72-10 Bulls team? Or is it somebody else out there that we're probably going to say you're wrong on? No, I'm just
we probably are going to say.
I'm just joking. But obviously, outside of sports, we always like to talk about a GOAT conversation, if you will, when it talks about centered around God, talking about the greatest to ever do it in faith. And today's topic is centered around a great topic that I think gets lost a lot of times in church. And we talked about a little bit of this when we talked about our ideal church, but that topic is discipleship. And I am very passionate about discipleship, and I know you are as well. So I felt like that would be a great conversation to talk about, because I feel like discipleship is something that is missed in church today. I feel like lots of people confuse discipleship with either evangelism or salvation. And I don't believe that people truly understand what discipleship is truly, especially in today's day and age. So if someone was to ask you in 2024, what is discipleship? What's the easiest way you could put it? Or what would you say?
I would say discipleship is going alongside of a leader, learning how to emulate what makes them successful from a spiritual walk.
Yeah.
And then being able to take what they've learned, and go reproduce themselves for the kingdom.
Right.
Off the pattern of Christ. Christ chose 12, and one was the devil. He already knew one was not.
It was all part of the plan.
All part of the plan. That's what I'm talking about. You talking about picking disciples?
Yeah.
He basically built the church on the back of 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you really research scripture, not all 11 were that strong.
Right.
So that even is more impressive on who he did use. And even then, how Paul ends up getting incorporated as a disciple, having not walked with Jesus, as being one of the 12 apostles.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very important that the church look at that.
100%, 100%. And you said it very well. Discipleship is about emulating, getting beside or behind a leader so that you can kind of learn how to be a better follower or disciple of Christ. And I think that what we confuse sometimes is, like I said, discipleship with evangelism or just becoming a Christian. And lots of people say it all the time. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I had the opportunity to talk to somebody who's been a missionary for like 14, 15 years, travels all over the world doing missions. And he talks about how some of these countries, what they lack is true discipleship, because the gospel's been taught and it's been preached, but you cannot see that in the way that they live their day-to-day lives. And I feel like some people bypass that scripture that says we will know them by their fruit, right? And the seed, you get the seed planted when you hear the gospel, you give your life to Christ, the seed is planted, but then we see a lot of rotten fruit because there's no discipleship that takes place. And people are not producing good, true fruit because there's not good, true leaders in discipleship that are discipling them and showing them how to produce fruit that is needed in today's day and age.
I think there's two things there. You can plant the seed, but part of, then in order for the seed to grow, there has to be a level of submission.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the reason that you don't see it in today's church. Today's church is about community.
Yeah. Small groups. So don't get me started on small.
I'm not even going to go to small groups. Let's just deal first with community.
Yeah.
Community just said, I want to belong. That's not what a discipleship is.
Yeah.
Discipleship calls you out by accountability on your wrong.
Yeah.
And you accept it and you stay. You see a lot about the best form of discipleship that you may see is if you followed martial arts and you see people who learned under some great martial arts teachers, they're disciples of them. When you look in sports today, the loss of Kobe Bryant start bringing out who were disciples or people who were trying to emulate the Mamba mentality.
Right.
So you see it in a lot of different perspectives. I mean, when people want to get rich, they try to go emulate Warren Buffett. I find it very interesting that LeBron James, when he first started the NBA, sat down and had dinner with, or basically they said it's a hamburger and a Coke with Warren Buffett, but I felt he kept in touch with him and became potentially a business disciple of his, because you look at how successful he's become.
Right.
And that, it's like that. When you begin to emulate, you figure out that this person over here knows a little bit more about this subject matter than I.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to submit to them.
That's huge.
To learn how to be better, because I'm not the smartest person in the room. I just think much of modern day, whether you at work, whether you at church, whether you in your house, everybody wants to be the smartest person in the room, and nobody wants to be a disciple.
And they don't want to be held accountable or called out or corrected. And those things are all needed in discipleship. And when you talk about submission, you can use that dichotomy of a seed, because when a seed is planted, it takes a time for that seed to take root, right? It has to be cultivated. And the only way that it could take root and to grow and be cultivated is it has to submit, if you will, to the process, to stay in the soil. You can't plant something just by dropping the seed in and pulling it out, right? And I think that's what happens at times. We say that, I'm going to this church and I found a mentor, I found this and that. But then when they say something that you don't like, then you out.
Then they're not your mentor.
Okay. Yeah, very true. Very true.
To be a disciple or to have a mentor, I'll just talk from my being mentored. My mentor, the first thing he told me was, I need you to be accountable to me.
Yeah.
I was clueless at that time. I was starting my church. I was like, what are you talking about? In my mind, born and raised in church, I was like, is this tied to some kind of offering or something? I did. I was like, you mean I got to give you some money? What? Tell me what we talking about here. He was like, no. He says, accountability is, it doesn't matter what time of day, what day of the year, what time. I can come to your house. You must let me in. You must wake up and answer any question I ask you truthfully. Will you be accountable to that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, And that's tremendously blessed me, knowing that part of the reason what accountability will help you when you want to do wrong, because you figure out I might get asked about this.
So real.
And if I get asked about this, I'm not going to have the ability to lie to this person. So I just think that people don't want that in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, COVID's created a whole new work ethic. Folks don't want to come to work. They want to work from home. They want the whole remote thing. And don't get me wrong, there's some benefits to
100%. I love remote work.
But here's the problem with it. Are you at home working?
That's true.
Because if you ain't at home working and your boss asks you,
you just remote.
Exactly. You ain't working. And I think that different groups, age groups in this society thinks that they can't be held accountable, or somebody's hurting their feelings, or look, if you ain't working, why you mad? Because when your boss call you, you ain't working.
Right.
So why you mad? When they say, well, what did you do today? Well, what, you don't think I'm not working yet? No. What you want them to say? No, I don't think you're working. And if they tell you that, then you in your feelings.
Right.
But the real reality is you wasn't working.
Yeah, that's true.
But we don't want that. But that makes us better.
Yeah, 100%. Accountability always makes you better in the long run. Even though it doesn't feel good, it's needed to properly cultivate that seed and to produce the best fruit when we talk about discipleship and just being the best person you can in the kingdom. So
I think that's the reason schools are the way they are. Schools lacks discipleship. When I was coming to school, public school, you didn't act a fool.
Yeah.
Teachers discipled you. They saw the kid that was going somewhere, and they pointed you in the right direction. When I look at my high school, going from junior high to elementary, teachers didn't just let me do what I wanted to do.
Right.
Now, teachers can't say nothing to kids. And you don't think that that's a direct result? And why we got the chaos and the nonsense we got in schools today? It's accountability. When there's a lack of accountability, there's a lack of discipleship. And those things lack, everything suffers.
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand when it comes to accountability and discipleship. And you mentioned something at the beginning when you talked about wanting a community and how people want community. And I feel like community is great, right? We need community. Community is how we grow at times, if it's a community that's actually going to challenge you and push you and call you out and hold you accountable. But I feel like what's happened in church specifically, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, is that people have created small groups that has gone in place of, I would say, discipleship, because lots of times these small groups in these churches today are not really discipleship groups, they're clubs. Because you've got any type of small group you want that fits to your hobby or fits to your interests. You got a small group for basketball, small group for scrapbooking, small group for knitting, small group for whatever you want to do. And my thing is, I don't feel like small groups are bad, but what are you actually doing in that small group that is helping other people be better disciples for Jesus Christ? You know what I mean?
In other words, you say how they're impacting the kingdom.
Correct. Overall,
because
there are some good small groups out
Absolutely.
there. Yeah.
I mean, you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Right.
But let's keep it real. A lot of small groups ain't nothing but a clique.
Exactly.
When I was coming up,
exactly.
Clique club. We had the chess club.
Not the chess club.
We had the chess club. What did you do? All we did was learn how to play chess, and it was a small group of us. All I'm saying is, look, man, people don't like being alone.
Yeah.
But what you create, you got to create that's going to live. And I don't think people do that. To me, small groups were a adversarial replacement to Bible study. That's just me. Bible study helped disciple people.
Very true.
Small groups isolate people. And if that small group leader or those small group teams are not in tune or not disciples of the pastor,
that's the key.
What you eventually have is church split.
That's the key. Because I think that there are a way to do small groups at churches and be effective in that. But I think what happens lots of times is that we have signups and registration just to be a small group leader, and you could do this, you could do that, whatever it is. But we're not sitting down with the leaders or the pastors of that said ministry or that said church to talk about, this is what I want to do in this group, and see if it lines up with the vision of the church, lines up with what we're teaching in the season, lines up with where we're trying to take the church in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. You know what I mean? So I think that is so important when it comes to small groups, because small groups, I believe, can be an effective avenue for discipleship, but I think that it starts at the head.
I was going to
say that. Because if the group is already going, it's hard to kind of stop a moving truck. You know what I mean?
Oh, you can't.
It's hard. Exactly. You can't. So it's going to be hard to make that truck detour, especially when you've got people. And then that's why we see people mad that you ended my club. You ended my small group. Exactly. No, we ended it because it's not being an effective tool of discipleship. And I think that people get so offended sometimes because they get so close and they cling to that idea of community and that idea of that group, but they are not actually learning what it is to be discipled. And like you said, Bible study was a key tool for that. But now in today's day and age, we see a lot of small groups. So I think that there needs to be, like I said before, healthy blend. Yeah,
there's
balance.
There's not a balance, because what helps balance it is the preacher got to come off his high horse and off his throne to meet with the people in the small groups.
Yeah.
To make sure, one, who I'm picking,
right,
if we on the same page.
Yeah.
And then not be afraid to challenge them when they're not, or make a change when they're not,
right,
for fear of losing somebody. You know, the Bible says a leader should have wisdom, have discernment.
Yeah.
And sometimes people overlook things they shouldn't overlook because they're afraid of losing people. When you're a disciple, I'm not afraid of losing you.
Yeah.
When you're a disciple. Because if you tell me I need to go somewhere else, that means we're growing.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm training you to go minister somewhere else.
Yeah.
And possibly not stay here.
Yeah.
To expand the kingdom. I just think discipleship is just, we don't want it. I just think in general people just don't want it, because it goes back to that word accountable. Then I got to make sure I'm living right.
And you said something there about when it comes to expanding the kingdom and training people, because I could think of just so many different ministries and hearing about different people who go to different churches. And lots of times, because there is not effective discipleship, we see the same people teaching, we hear the same voices, we hear the same things, because sometimes there are pastors, if we're just being honest, there are some pastors who are like Thanos, who they just want to have the 5 stones, the 5 infinity stones, yeah. And they want to keep the 5 best people in their group and not actually put them out to actually expand them and expand the kingdom. You know what I mean? To actually push them out to actually go and build more disciples.
So instead of talking about disciples, he got puppets.
There it is.
He got puppets.
They got Avengers.
Yeah. You know, how do I control and manipulate? You know, Jesus developed the disciples.
Yes, that's huge.
To go out and create the gospel, share the gospel with the entire world.
Right.
But I think some things gets lost in that because of one word, good. We say good news. We associate good with everything being happy. When in the word of God, everything isn't happy. Everything, there's stuff that challenges you. And if we truthful, there's things we like.
Yeah.
That the Bible tells us we need to leave alone.
Yeah, very true.
And is that really good news?
It depends on how you look at it.
I'm just saying, it's good news for my spirit man.
Right. But not
for my flesh, flesh. But when you're discipled, you begin to understand.
That's it.
Like your mentor come and tell you, you can't do that. And he or she hasn't given you an explanation yet on why. Today's society, you can't tell me what to do.
Nope.
You got why. First thing you're saying is
not
why.
My dad.
Yeah. Even if I was in your case, like I'm your dad, you don't listen to me all the time.
Hey, this ain't about me, sir.
I know it's not. I'm just saying, just in general.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. we don't have those kind of relationships anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell anybody in a minute, when I look back over my life, some of the greatest things I've had is people who have mentored me, people I met, even for a short period of time,
Right.
that God allowed to come in my life that have mentored me to some degree, that I've learned either from afar or very close.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could start naming some. If we were to start talking about preachers, where I've learned from. But the thing I always look at, they always had somebody, the successful ones, always had somebody that they were accountable to.
100%.
And then when their mentor passed on, they took the mantle to be a mentor.
Mm. And that's what I was going to get at, because we got to wrap up. But that's what I was going to get at real quick. Something else I want to ask you and kind of dive into quickly is that when it comes to that point right there, passing on the mantle, and then I was being mentored by somebody who was now passed on, right? Kind of the Elisha and Elijah mentality, and now taking on the mantle, and now you're actually becoming that mentor to other people. You know, Matthew 28 talks about go out and make disciples of all people, right? So how can somebody who's been discipled now go out and make disciples? Like, what do you think is some tools or some keys that they can kind of go do if they've been discipled for so long? You know what I mean? And some people don't feel like, I'm not good enough to be a leader, I'm not good enough to be a mentor, I'm not good enough to do X, Y, and Z. How can those people, after they've been discipled for so long, go out and make other disciples?
I think a key point is who discipled them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that whoever discipled them will let them know that they're called to something greater than just being discipled.
Right.
And then give them the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I know we'll probably have to do another segment, but if I walk down how I was discipled and things that were shared with me, it became easy that at some point I'm going to disciple somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If it's nothing more, that God's going to make people cross your path and they going to cling to you.
Yeah.
You know, using the Bible as the principle is probably one of the greatest mentorees is Elijah and Elisha.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that Elijah does that a mentor can find out if it's for real, if you really are for real, is try to run them away.
I know exactly what you're about to say.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
Go. And he had already known because Elisha had asked for a double portion.
Yep.
And it was like, if you see me when I'm gone,
See,
when I leave.
This is a whole nother episode.
You're right. It's a whole nother episode, because that right there.
Because how closely are you clinging to your mentor or your leader? Or are you just being mentored from afar? Right? Well, that's a whole nother thing. We could dive into a whole nother thing. But this has been great. And obviously it looks like we need to have a part 2 of discipleship, because we could talk about this for more and more and more time. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed yet another episode of GOAT Talk, diving deep into discipleship. And we will check you guys out, or check in with you, should I say, next week on our next episode of GOAT Talk. See y'all soon.